in this case a mouse event. So we get all the extra properties that are in the mouse event. And that's it. So I don't dispatch anything, that's the interesting thing. So I just say native signal mouse event.click and it's wiring it up automatically. So anytime mouse event.click happens on this, it's going to dispatch this event. So it's a very easy way of working. I'll just show you this in action. Just have to click event on photo click, so nothing up my sleeve, it's not dispatching anything, it's just wiring mouse event.click to a native signal. So fire it up, we have the cute photographs again. If you click on this, you still get back those trace statements. So it's actually using signals to wrap around events, native events in ActionScript. So it's giving back image 1, image 2, image 3. So this is a very simplified example, but in bigger projects this has a lot of advantages because you don't have to rely on all those custom events. You don't have to extend constantly, you don't have to do all those things that take a lot of time and energy. So you can spend your time drinking coffee and playing games. Okay, so almost there. Just a few more things. Native relay signal, I didn't provide an example for this because it's so similar to the native signal. The only difference really is that it extends the log signal. So it's the same as the log signal, so it has support for target and for signal, so you can get those back. And it also has its own dispatch code. So this is using bubbling. I'm not sure if you know about event bubbling. It's a concept where an event travels through the display list from one item to the other, goes up and down again through the display list. So in some cases you want to do that, and the native relay signal has support for that, because often mouse events rely on bubbling, so that's an important thing to have. So the class for that, org.signals.natives.native relay signal. Now, the interesting bit, if you loved the talks this morning, people are starting to look at integrating this with various frameworks, and I found two really good examples. One is with RobotLex. I think we have a presentation of RobotLex here today. I've heard it's really good, so please stay around for that. So this URL, I'll put these slides up later and you can just look at that during your own time. And also for Swiss, which is a really nice framework as well, they have something called Signals. So Swiss plus Signals. It's a nice project and it's combining the best of both worlds. So various frameworks are looking at using this because it's such an easy way of working with events and gives you some flexibility, and it's a lot more lightweight than usual events. So these useful features you might be wondering about. Remove all, that's the big one because you had to write that yourself all the time. If you had a lot of listeners, you'd have to keep like an array of all the listeners and then loop through it and do remove event listener on each of them because the API didn't support it. So maybe Adobe will add it in the next version, but right now it's not there, and AS3 Signals has it, so you can take advantage of it. And once I showed you that, so you can just have an event trigger one time and then it removes itself. So that's useful if you just want to have one click event and you don't need to bother about the rest, or if you want to make sure that it's cleaned up. Non-listeners, it's also not so very easy to use in ActionScript 3. So it has a reference to the number of listeners to a signal. So if you want to know how many listeners there are, or if you need to clean something up, non-listeners is a property you can use. And it has experimental event bubbling support, a lot of other things. You can check it out. I'll put the URL in the next slide, I think. So, no. The first thing, performance. A lot of people ask about this because they say, oh, I want to use the native thing because it's a lot faster. But actually, Signals is very lightweight. So, I think Alec or some guy in the community made a little benchmark here for events versus Signals. And the first one is 100,000 events without any listeners applied to it. So if you do that with a regular ActionScript event, that takes about 500 milliseconds, just about. And for Signals, that takes maybe 100 milliseconds. So that's quite a difference. Of course, those are events without any listeners. If you apply one listener, the difference is a lot less, although it's still a lot better than regular events, just because there's no overhead of all that bubbling, of all that priority listeners that you have with regular events. So in this case, with a listener, it's about 700 milliseconds for 100,000 events, and for a signal, it's maybe 300. So it's about half, let's say. So it's not bad. You can use it in production, especially if you want to use it. I'd recommend using Signal and the Lux Signal. Those are perfectly safe to use, well tested. It has unit tests as well, so I wouldn't worry about that. The experimental things with the native signals, they seem to be okay. Not used it in production yet, but it should be fine in the next few weeks or so. So where can you get it? The most important question, of course, well, it's on GitHub, so you can get it from that site. Robert Penner has a couple of projects on there, and AS3 Signals is one of them. There's also more information about it on his blog. It hasn't been updated recently, but it still has some good discussion about the project. And he's always looking for more thoughts on how to structure it, because he wants a really solid event-based system. There's a Google group that's very interesting, with some quite high-level discussion about how to use it, how it can be optimized. And Robert Penner is also on Twitter, Rob Penner. So you can note this down, or I'll give them to you later. Questions, thoughts, suggestions, how to improve this? Anyone?
What about the event propagation? We have something like event and current target and event targeting object. That's a lot of difference between.
Yeah, that's true.
So how that can be achieved?
I think they're looking at supporting it. It's not very solid right now, but they're looking at doing event propagation and cloning in those native events. They have some form for it, but it's not implemented in the signal yet, as far as I know. It's something they're looking at, but they want to keep it lightweight as well, so it's sort of a balance, but they definitely want to support it because they need to have support for all the regular event things we have, the other frameworks and other things. So it's an important thing to look at, but I don't think they have it right now, at least in stable code, so they're working on it. Anything else? So these are my details. I'm on Twitter, Peter Elst. My email address is Project Cocoon. My blog, Peter Elst. Our website, which needs updated by the way. And with that, I'd just like to thank you.